10 years ago. September 11th was just a bright, blue, brisk day.
Beautiful, bright, sunny day.
Absolutely cloudless sky. No, just sheer blue.
Oh God, 10 years.
Seems like a long time ago. It seems like yesterday.
Not appear that there's any kind of an effort up there yet. Now remember, oh my God.
Just witnessed a plane that appeared to be cruising slightly lower than normal altitude over New York City, and it hit directly in the middle of one of the World Trade Center towers.
Twin-engine plane, or possibly a 737 passenger jet, flying into the World Trade Center.
On the morning of September 11th, 2001, I was at the gym.
September 11th, I remember it being
exercising
a hot day.
On a treadmill or something.
Just dropped my children off at
Radio.
where I live, and I was walking through Union Square.
I was here the day
I was just about to get into the shower.
I learned about the attack.
There were going to be fire trucks. They had to be going somewhere. So I went out the back of Pace University, and I must have stepped out of the building about the time that the first tower fell. I stepped out in the corridor just to look out, see what was going on outside, and one of my colleagues stepped out of her classroom, and we didn't see the second airplane hit, but we saw the fireball that came out of the south side of the tower. So I got out, stepped out of the back, probably about the time the first tower fell, because there were people running by.
At some point when we knew that there was a second plane that had hit the World Trade Center, at that point I guess a lot of people started to realize that something else was going on. Later on in the day, listening to the radio and watching different televisions that were on in the school, we got a sense that there was a definite problem.
I assembled everyone into the conference room, the President's conference room right here, and we briefed each other on what we had heard, what we had seen. People had radios, some people had televisions, and we agreed that we would go around the campus. We'd split up, we'd go around the campus, we'd see how people were, we'd see what needed to be done, we'd try to deal with the way that these events were impacting us, and then we'd reconvene every hour back in the conference room to update each other on what we'd learned.
We kept the buildings open, and we canceled classes.
I noticed the person next to me was crying, was sobbing, sniffling, and I turned slightly, of course we're trying to move forward, so I turned slightly, see who it was. It was a young woman, and she had a Pace lanyard, and I said, "Do you know where you are?" And she said, "No."
I was a residence director in the building, and we were given this pager that the RAs could send us messages on, and there was a message on there that said, a small plane had hit one of the towers. And as I was telling my mother that, she said that it was the Pentagon, that a plane had crashed into the Pentagon, and apparently she was seeing that footage at that very moment. And I could hear her really start to kind of panic, and I said, "No, that's in Washington. I'm in New York, don't you remember?"
At some point, the school decided to be open until 1 o'clock in the evening. So being that no one really could travel on the train or whatever, and I was here for my 7 to 3 shift, I wound up staying the entire 24 hours until the following day before I went home.
So I took my companion and we went, I want to get on 2nd Avenue. I couldn't think of a single big important building on 2nd Avenue that these airplanes might want to bomb, because we didn't know they were done.
There's a student that I had at the time who I'd become friends with already and was close to, Aaron Michelson. His apartment was just a few blocks from the World Trade Center. And so in talking with him, I learned that he wanted to go down to his apartment to clean some stuff out of there. And The building that his apartment was in was within the zone that was cordoned off.
We got to Marymount. One of the people I work with, Tammy Wofsy, who's downstairs at the moment, was outside. She was the first person who said to me, "What's that on you?"
His windows had been open. And so throughout his apartment, there was a thick layer of grainy white dust throughout the apartment, just from when the sweep of the clouds resulting from the collapse of the building blew out throughout the neighborhood. They went into any open space, and so his apartment was layered with this thick layer of dirt.
And I had these little gray flakes all over.
It suddenly struck me that in all this debris, this dust that was everywhere, that what was included in that was human DNA product.
They were sticky because they weren't just, they were cement particles. They were sticky and you couldn't just brush it off easily.
There was a lot of concrete and steel and construction material, but human beings' remains were part of that debris.
Both people I worked with at Marymount and people that I just knew, friends and whatnot, we talked about how much the city didn't kind of devolve. It really pulled together. There was very much a sense of what can we do to help each other.
Right after 9/11, where I was walking, I believe, on Lexington Avenue, leaving the college, and I think it was raining, and a woman came over and put her umbrella over me and kind of walked me, and I thought for a moment, boy, I mean, this has never happened to me in a million years in New York, and I thought how wonderful it was that in fact, we were reacting this way, feeling that we were all New Yorkers, we were all in this together.
What the events helped us to do was open our eyes to maybe so many parameters that we weren't investigating or thinking about on a day-to-day basis.
Small stories, I think, are the ones that stick out. Like a friend of mine who I found out later walked over the Queensboro Bridge to get home. Got to the other side of the bridge, there was a shoe store there, and there was a guy out at the shoe store just giving away sneakers to women who were in heels and just could not walk in shoes anymore, walking barefoot. He was out, he just like Converse and just whatever he had, he was just giving it away.
The whole city was was filled of mini shrines to missing or lost individuals from 9/11. Chain link fences with photographs of people and messages, and these are walls of memory. These go back to ancient times. I mean, we have the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem where people put little messages and prayers in, and New York City became a kind of an ongoing process of people putting images, flowers, gifts, pictures, writing things. It was all over the city, and you sort of felt this presence of people trying to connect with one another and with something bigger than themselves. And I think, as much as I say Marymount's a small community, it's in a huge city, but that city responded in a remarkable way. I mean, I was very proud to be a New Yorker.
I will never forget the audience responding to the Green Goblin trying to, knock down Spider-Man when he's got this cable car full of people he's trying to save, kids and whatnot, And the people all lined up on the bridges, these New Yorkers on the bridge are like throwing stuff at the Green Goblin. And I've never seen this response to any film before or since in New York. And that was when the guy on the bridge says, you got nothing better to do than, pick on a guy trying to save a bunch of kids. And either that guy or the next guy, I can't remember if it's the guy standing next to him, he's like, you pick on one of us, you pick on all of us. And the crowd in the theater lost their minds. It wasn't applause, it wasn't just cheering, it was just like people stood up and yelled at the screen. People were like, it was the most fascinating and amazing reaction. I mean, everybody felt that way. Everybody felt like, you know, teamwork. We're all in this together. You know, you pick on one of us, you pick on all of us. This attitude of having each other's backs. It was just, to a movie like Spider-Man was such a weird moment, but kind of perfectly encapsulated the emotion that was running through the city in the weeks and months following.
Art is a way of embodying and containing trauma. When I came into class again, I recall that day as probably one of the most wonderful days I had as a teacher. I helped the students and myself contain a highly, almost uncontrollable sense of emotion and kind of despair that we were all feeling, and fear, and when we had a task in front of us, let's draw this bottle. I mean, how meaningless could that be? And yet, it was probably one of the more spiritual acts.
We began to plan for a set of meetings, dialogues, open sessions with students and faculty and staff members, so that people weren't isolated in their fear, in their anger, in their stereotypic understanding of who's the other in this case and what other is.
We've become much more thoughtful about global issues. I don't know that we have, honestly. I know that we're trying. You know, we did a strategic plan a few years ago for the college that tried to imagine a future in which we had a more international emphasis in our curriculum. And we're just in the early stages of, you know, rolling that out, trying to figure out what that actually looks like.
This will be the first time in an art studio class where students will be making work that has some reflection of the Middle Eastern culture.
The new normal is the life after the loss in the new configuration that it must take.
To lose someone after, you know, with such a senseless act, but you know, the average person, I think, you know, has healed, you know, quite a bit, you know.
People working together harmoniously to keep a community going.
A lot of students, you know, returned and stayed at the school, so that it wasn't quite as sort of devastating to the city as maybe I expected in the first weeks and months.
What I really remember is how resilient the community was.
Everyone offering their support, everyone being there for one another, and it just really gave me a sense of appreciation for, you know, what I have, and, you know, how blessed I am to, you know, be part of this community.
I think we were left in our community at Marymount, which is a strong community, with more compassion for each other.
It was a terrible day, but the college acquitted itself very well.
As a community reached out to each other to support and be loving and such, and I think we've carried that on. I think we've incorporated that in our new normal.